Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. And you're watching us on a number of different platforms. As always, that we want a special thank you to Jonathan Ross at Holy Faith Media. He did a lot of scrambling today, a lot of moving around to make sure that he got back so that he can get the show ready for you guys so we could go live at 8 o'clock. Our show is growing thanks to you. Thank you for all your contributions, particularly your prayers. I do want to mention that we are on Patreon right now, so I'll mention it a couple times. Patreon.com/The Frontline with Joe and Joe. If you'd like to contribute to our success, you'll see the different levels there, but we promise we will not beat you over the head with it. We'll just remind you once in a while that we are on Patreon if you want to contribute. And we are successful, and it's thanks to you. Oh, first of all, thanks to God. And thanks to you, because our message is getting out there to a much wider audience. I do want to mention before we get started that we have a fantastic interview and conversation with Dr. Marek Hodekovic and Dr. E. Michael Jones. That's on both our YouTube page and our Facebook page, on a number of pages, but primarily you'll find it there. Great conversation about how to resist in the culture war, not just to resist, but to attack and to defeat them. And both these men, E. Michael Jones and Marek Hodekovic, give us ways in which they have done it and ways in which we can do it. First things first, though, we have to open our mouths and we have to speak the truth about everything that's going on out there. That's what we're doing at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. So we got a great show for you tonight. Just to give you a quick preview, we have Cardinal Mueller. It's not pulling any punches, telling you straight up, this is all about control. It's all about political power, and cultural control and political control. So we're going to talk about that because Cardinal Mueller had something to say about that. We do have a case in Indiana. And Joe and I haven't really gotten into on our shows, as you know, the vaccine and COVID in general too much. But we're going to talk about this because this is a case where a united state in America, one of the states, is saying or doing something through its legislature or trying to, that's meant to protect us rather than what you're dealing with the federal government where they're trying to do nothing but hurt you. This is Indiana, and hopefully other states will follow, where they're trying to pass legislation that's going to help you and protect you. Okay, so we want to talk about that. And then we're going to have to talk about Joe Biden. There's a number of things that our audience needs to know. We haven't spoken much about Mr. Biden on this show. But there's a few things that tie into what we're doing here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, so we're going to break that down for you. So we'd ask you to stick around for a great conversation. Having said all that, thank you for your patience. I'm going to kick it over to Joe.
As Joe said, we're going to talk a little bit about Cardinal Mueller. Great book to read. This guy is the bomb, in all honesty. Definitely one of the prelates on a global scale that you should check out. A lot to say. Brilliant mind. I think he's very holy. He's also very balanced. A lot of very good things to say. He recently weighed in on a lot of what's going on from the elites globally. And I just want to read a couple of excerpts of some of the comments that he made, and then I think it'll spawn a very good conversation. I think you'll enjoy it. I know. Cardinal Mueller recently stated he sees a merging of Western capitalism with China, forming a united capital socialism. Interesting. The German prelate went on to say that the two sides, profiteering capitalism, big tech giants of Western countries, and the communism of People's Republic of China are today converging and merging into a unified capital socialism called neo-colonialism. The Cardinal warned that the goal of this newly merged force is absolute control of thought, speech, and action.
Let's stop there. Let's break that down, okay? So again, when somebody's pointing something out, the immediate response nowadays say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, let's break it down. Let's start with what Cardinal Mueller is saying about control of thought, okay? Does anyone here need to be convinced that the indoctrination that goes on in education in all Western countries, by the way, from the lowest grades right up through higher education, are they not trying to control thought? Are they not trying to only hire professors that teach from a leftist point of view or a Marxist point of view? If you're a conservative on campuses, you have a really hard time. If you're a conservative in the public school system, you have a really hard time because they want to be able, look, if they know they can't control your thought as an adult, the next best thing for them is to control your child's thought and to indoctrinate your children. So is he not right about that?
Oh, he's
is that a conspiracy theory?
Well, he actually talks about that. He basically says if you disagree with them, they try to label you as a conspiracy nut.
That's their immediate response because they think that that's the way to discredit you. So if you connect the dot, okay, remember something. Conspiracies exist. Ask Julius Caesar. Well, you can't because he was the victim of a conspiracy between Brutus and Cassius and a bunch of other people. Okay, here's my point. Conspiracies exist, but you have to provide evidence of the conspiracy. And in this particular case, I think absolutely you could see that the global elites, as far as attempting to control, as Cardinal Mueller says, thought, speech, and action, as far as thought is concerned, that's a no-brainer. The new book burners are all on the left, by the way. If you want to think about controlling thought, what about cancel culture? Is that coming from conservatives or is that coming from liberals? They're the ones who want to cancel everybody in sight. And I'm sure they want to cancel us pretty soon.
And you also got to talk about the media, and he talks about that. He said, through mainstreaming, total conformity of the consciousness of the masses is to be achieved via the media. The media is a propaganda machine of the elites. We all know that.
Right.
They're definitely in lockstep, and they're basically the message. And they can convince the world that a guilty man is an innocent man, and an innocent man is a guilty man. Malcolm X said that.
And many times they could do that by saying, you're talking about the media.
Correct.
By not reporting on something or preventing others from reporting on it. So when the New York Post reported about the allegations against Hunter Biden, the media didn't go anywhere near it. Now, why? So they didn't even want to spin the story so they could control the narrative. They just didn't even cover it. So that's another way that they control thought. They don't give any of their viewers an alternative point of view. So once in a while, they spin the narrative and they create the narrative that they want you to hear. But in other cases where they really can't get around that, they can't, no matter how much they strain, they can't twist the narrative to the story to fit their narrative, then they'll just ignore it completely. So we know Cardinal Mueller is exactly right, that they're trying to control thought. How about speech, Joe Resinello?
Well, I actually thought this was the most interesting thing, and I'd like to obviously speech as well. I mean, it's in lockstep. You're seeing that with the censorship. You're seeing that basically, obviously, we all know what's happened on Twitter, people getting thrown off. You see people getting thrown out of Facebook for periods of time. I mean, that's going on. It's only going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought this was the most interesting thing, and I want to expand upon it because I think this is at the core of what you just saw this last summer in America. The Cardinal warns that the utopia of a paradise on earth in any form results in the greatest crimes committed against humanity. He gives some examples: denial of dissenters of freedom, destruction of labor, population reduction by abortion, and euthanasia are just a few examples.
Also, outright murder. And don't think that just applies to to Stalin, who died in the 1950s, or Pol Pot, who really died. He actually was in the woods, if you remember that story. Pol Pot actually, after 20 years, came out of the woods and then dropped dead. But he disappeared into the jungles of Cambodia for 20 years. But anyway, we're not talking about that. But don't think that with the CCP, with the Chinese Communist Party, you're not talking. Right now, it's direct oppression and slavery, especially when you're talking about the Uyghurs, the Muslims, okay, who are basically slave laborers right now. At some point, the CCP will drop the hammer on them, and they'll just kill them outright. So along with what Cardinal Mueller's saying about all these correct things, the correct ways he's describing what these utopias will lead to, don't overlook directly murdering people too, because communists are very, very good at that. They're actually, they've nearly perfected it.
So basically, he goes on to say, man's nature, wounded by sin, needs divine forgiveness. Only God's grace can redeem us and give us the freedom and glory of the children of God. Basically, what he's saying is this: anytime that man tried to create a utopia. And that's what this whole movement is trying to do. They're trying to create an equality. The message is your shareholders, your stakeholders, or whatever nonsense, which is just a farce.
You're not listen, in their system, you're not going to hold the stake in anything.
Believe it. If you ask me what it is they're afraid that the inequalities are growing greater, that people will rise up and basically slit their throats. That's what I think this whole situation is. So basically, they're trying to throw people a little bit of a crumb so they don't do that. I'm digressing. But what I mean by this, what I was getting at is this. You cannot create utopia. The communists have tried it. Mao tried it. Man's nature is broken. And what he's talking about, it's wounded by sin, and it's only through divine forgiveness that we're healed.
But that requires an acknowledgement of God, and that's what the left is bereft of.
But and that's where I think you see a lot of this projection against institutions. You see, all people, smart people, simple people, rich people, poor people, all over the world. We're all sinners. We're all broken. The Catholic Church is the vehicle for sinners. It gives us grace through the sacrament, actually the Eucharist, but it also allows us through the sacrament of reconciliation to be forgiven. When you don't have that, people, their wounds, these people are projecting their woundedness on the very institutions, saying it's this one's fault, it's that one's fault. They're basically lashing out as opposed to healing themselves. And he's saying this here. He's saying man's nature, wounded by sin, needs divine forgiveness, that a utopia of a paradise in earth in any form results in crimes against humanity. 100%. Always, every time a society tries to create a utopia, a totalitarian state results in it. The former Soviet Union is a great example of that.
And think of it too. They don't want to create a utopia. They call it that. All right. That's the way they sell it. Okay. The Soviet Union under Stalin, that's the way they tried to sell it. We could have a workers' paradise. I forgot the name of the city. They actually built a city that was supposed to be the model of the communist city for the world. Okay. I forgot if it was in Poland or Russia, but I'll take your word for it. There was no God. There was no churches. Okay. It was a total sham. It was complete propaganda, because what they're selling, or what they try to sell you, or they tell you they're selling you, is a utopia. We can correct all these wrongs. We don't need God. We don't need that. Okay. Well, we can do it ourselves, and we'll correct all these wrongs, and we'll have a utopian society. And Karl Marx himself said, you'll work 4 hours a day and spend the rest of the day contemplating life by the lakeshore and fishing. That's the way they sell it, because they want to make you believe that there is such a thing as a utopia. Catholic Church says no such thing as a utopia. But having said that, they sell it to you that way, and then what does it result in? It results in what you said: disaster, destruction. Mao convinced people. Well, he convinced people after he murdered a whole bunch of them. Okay, especially the intellectuals. He took them right out. All right, tried to convince people he's going to create heaven on earth in China. In the meantime, killed 5 million people after the first 5-year plan. Then they came in and said to him, he says, how'd it go? He goes, well, it went all right, but 5 million people died. All right, try it again, he said. And then he tried it again. And after 15 million people died in that experiment alone, they said, all right, maybe we'll try something different. That's what they do. Why? Joe always says it, and we don't care who gets tired of hearing it. We're going to say it all the time. They don't have God. They don't want God, because God puts a check on their behavior. And these are people like Cardinal's saying about they want absolute control over thought, speech, and action. And they show it. But they show it. You're seeing it. All you good people out there that are watching the front line with Joe and Joe, they show it to you. We just got done saying when it comes to thought, how the media controls thought. When it comes to speech, how big tech is trying to control speech. So now you can't. Joe and I, before the show, we were talking about the free marketplace of ideas. If there was a real free marketplace of ideas in America, the Democrats wouldn't get elected dog catcher. If they really threw their ideas into the free marketplace of ideas and allowed those ideas to be scrutinized by people like you and people like us, they wouldn't get elected dog catcher.
And these are the people that are supposed to be the tolerant ones, right? They're trying to create an even playing field, equality for all through society. First and foremost, you cannot legislate morality. Also, I sincerely believe that Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and that he founded one church, which is the Catholic Church. And I prescribe to that as the truth, as in the absolute truth. It's not a custom. It is the truth. It's universal and it's forever. However, God gives you free will. He doesn't impose himself on you, and nor do I. You see, I'm actually the tolerant one. I don't impose myself, because love cannot be forced, because then it's not love. You choose love, and God gives you that choice.
That's why the church teaches against forced conversions. You cannot have a forced conversion,
and that's what,
because it's not from the heart.
And that's where this becomes. I bring this up because that's where this becomes a totalitarian state. They're imposing themselves on you. They are. Look what you're seeing. Even with the suppression of speech, the censorship, you can't say certain
controlling
things.
Actions.
They're controlling language.
Look at what's happened over the last few months. Okay, we're not gonna be so stupid. See, Jesus said, "Be as shrewd as serpents, but be as innocent as doves." And so, all you good people out there who are watching us at the front line with Joe and Joe can see. There's certain words and phrases we're avoiding right now, but you know what we're talking about, okay? But we're not going to let them have any excuse to take us down, okay? So the thing is, but you know where we're going with this. Look at the last 9 months. Look at how your actions have been controlled by dictators on the state level in particular, okay? Where they tell you have to do this, or you have to wear certain things on your body, or you can't go to certain places like church, okay? We see it all. It's like if you never, in the past, they used to be able, like we started the conversation by saying, they used to be able to say, you're a conspiracy nut. Now it's right in your face. When they accuse us of being conspiracy theorists, I say, you got to be a blind man not to see what they're doing. And Cardinal Mueller sees it. More importantly, as a prelate in the Catholic Church, he's saying it.
Well, he sees it also because he's holy. When you're holy, first of all, he has a monster intellect. Again, I definitely recommend that you get this book and read it. It's the Mueller Report. Fantastic read. And he is a very insightful man. He's a brilliant man.
Linda says, where's Cardinal Mueller from? I believe he's
Germany.
Germany.
No, he's German. He's German.
And the German bishops have leave a lot to be desired, but Cardinal Mueller is not one of them.
But he is holy. And when you're holy, you see things for what they are. You see things clearly. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see the face of God. He's a holy man. And this is a guy, to be honest with you, not only Catholics should be listened to, but the whole world should be listening to. He's an intelligent man, and he sees things for how they are. We have to see things for how they are. Sadly, too many people, because again, the media is just spinning the lie. That's
right.
And here's the deal. Ultimately, it doesn't affect the elites. They're above it. They have the money. And frankly, they have the opportunity because a lot of them are very intelligent and they have a lot of degrees and they can get jobs. It affects the average man. We're the ones that become the slaves. Ultimately, that is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to cement their position in society. And we're not going to be able to climb out of ours. I'm telling you,
and
this.
That's
if
why
you listen to anything we say, listen to that.
You're right, because their job. Listen, remember the line from 1984. If you don't want to read the book, you can watch the movie because the movie's great. And Richard Burton was great, and John Hurt was great, and some of our fellow conservative podcasters out there actually use it as part of their intro for their clip. Richard Burton looks at John Hurt, okay, and he says, "Picture a boot stamping on a human face. That's the future, Winston." Why is it that people find this so hard to believe? You're seeing it. When you're told you can't go to church, that whether you wear masks and gloves and sanitizer and everything else, no more than 10 people in church. They're not putting a boot in your face.
Or how about this? You can't say mother.
Right. Nancy Pelosi says in the House of Representatives, go ahead,
tell everybody. You can't say mother.
Right, because it's not gender neutral.
Or you can't believe in traditional marriage.
Right.
You cannot believe or say it. You can't say, I just believe marriage is between a man and a woman. Did I say something bad?
Yes, you said something hateful.
So this is what I'm saying. This is what's going on. They are taking the language away from us. They are censoring thought.
Right.
Is this America? It's not the America I know. I mean, and they proclaim to be the tolerant people. They're the most intolerant people I've ever seen.
They're totalitarians. They're not tolerant.
They say that Catholics basically project their religion on them. No, I'm not. Do whatever you want. It's your business. Allow me to be Catholic.
All right. Here's our view. If you want to go to hell, you could go to hell.
Your business.
But you're not taking our kids to hell. You're not going to take. You're not taking any of our kids to hell. You're not going to sell your perversion in the public schools so that you want to take our kids to hell, or as they get older, have them come and defy their parents because you told them to. No, we're going to fight you on that. I hope you know. Oh, wait a minute. Does fight, using the word fight?
Oh, you can't say that.
You can't say that. You're
Maybe they try to.
Right. Joe Biden can use the word fight. We can't use the word fight. The left can use the word fight, but we can't use the word fight when we're fighting a culture war. Okay. But when we want to protect our children, and it comes down to this, another thing that we said the other day when we had on E. Michael Jones and Dr. Hidekevich, okay, let's stop defending our positions. Let's start attacking theirs. You see, you could defend the truth, and that's a great thing to do. We're supposed to defend the truth, okay? But you need to also attack lies. Their lies that they tell will crumble because they're lies. They're just the way it is, okay? The truth will swallow up those lies. Let's stop defending our position on abortion, and let's assert that their position is murder. See, that's the way you attack their position, that their position on abortion is racist. So you can back this up. If you watch the Frontline with Joe and Joe, we back it up. Abortion's racist. Big abortion is racist. All right. More black babies die in New York City than are born. That's a stone cold fact. That's racist. Okay. Start attacking their positions as being morally evil, as being, let's say in the case of abortion, being murder of an innocent human being, being racist because mostly black and brown babies are the ones that are being killed. Let's start attacking their positions. Let's start attacking their lies. They will back down. They will back down because lies crumble in the face of the light of truth. They crumble. They will not survive.
Let's go to the state of Indiana. I think this is an interesting story.
Now, this is important when you're talking about fighting the culture war, okay? Now it's in a little different area because we're talking about, well, Joe's going to tell you about it, but nonetheless, it is a protection. It is the government, the state of Indiana, protecting its people. Go ahead, Joe.
An Indiana bill would prohibit companies from making COVID vaccines conditions of their employment. The Indiana State Senate is considering a bill which would protect the medical freedoms of workers by ensuring employers are not able to require the reception of the experimental COVID-19 vaccines as a condition for their employment. It's Senate Bill 74, and it states that the employer is prohibited from requiring an employee to receive any immunization if the immunization is medically inadvisable for the employee or receiving the immunization is against the employer's religious beliefs or conscience. The law also protects prospective employees on the same grounds and allows for a civil action against the employer for the violation.
God bless the state Senate in Indiana because they're trying to get this legislation through. This is important. This is important because it's going to hopefully set a precedent. Hopefully they pass it, okay, and set a precedent for other states. No, you employees. This is the government, the state governments telling the employers you cannot make a vaccination a condition of employment, nor can you ask a prospective employee if they've been vaccinated. You cannot do it. It's against the law, period, the end. And if you do it, okay, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have to answer for it. Okay, I think it's a very, very important step.
Again, it should be an option. This is a free country, right? If you want to take the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't, you shouldn't be forced to.
That's right. If you want, and listen, if you want, I'll go for a COVID test once a month.
That's it.
Okay. In other words, if it's a thing, I'll make sure I go to the doctor once a month.
That's your prerogative.
But I'm not going to. But unless I could see conclusively, okay, that vaccine is safe, that I could see it's not made from aborted baby body parts, okay, that it's not wasn't used in those same body parts were not used in the testing of that vaccine, okay, and the Catholic Church then turns around and says that vaccine is acceptable, unless those conditions are met, I ain't taking your damn vaccine.
And again, once again, I'll respect your choice. If you want to take it, take it. Okay, so why are you forcing me? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, again, what if I don't feel comfortable with it? What if I don't feel that it's tested properly?
Mhm.
What if I feel it hasn't been vetted?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things. You know, what if I feel that my safety is being put in, you know, jeopardy by taking it? So again, like, it's about tolerance, right? Listen, I'll be truthful with you. I wear my mask when I go shopping. I do. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'll wear it. Fine. You know what I'm saying? It's not the hill I'm going to die on. I'm just telling you right now. It's not the hill. When I go shopping, I put my mask on. When I go to church, it's required. I put my mask on. It's not the hill I'm going to die on. But when it comes to putting something in my body, I'm going to think twice about it. Maybe I'm not comfortable. Why can't I have that right? It doesn't seem like the country's going in that direction, and Indiana's putting their foot down. Good for them.
That's right. That's right. They are asserting their power in the United States. And listen, this is going to be a fight. This is going to be a fight because remember, the last time this happened, Indiana was spearheading the fight against people having to participate in their businesses in things that they find objectionable, like a gay marriage. Okay. And Indiana passed RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And E. Michael Jones, who's been on our show, if you want to see a really good interview, not now, don't leave us now, but it's on our YouTube and Facebook page. We did an interview with him and Dr. Hodekovic on Friday. Interesting, great show. If you're interested in resisting the oligarchs, you should really go and watch it. But he made the point. He goes, and all of a sudden, the state of Indiana, who is accountable and answerable to the people of the state of Indiana, passed a law that protects my right to say I'm not going to participate in something I find objectionable, period. Okay. And Silicon Valley sent in all their heavy hitters into Indiana and say, you're going to repeal this law. And Mike Pence is the one who caved. So before anybody starts putting Mike Pence on a pedestal, I've had my problems with Mike Pence for a while, long before January 6, 2021. Okay. And this was one of them. He caved on that. All right, where the legislature of a state passed a law that represents the views of the people of that state, and they were overridden by big tech and a weak-kneed governor. We have to pray that Indiana doesn't do the same thing now. They have a good law here, and they should be supported, and other states should follow suit. Other states should follow suit.
There's an interesting, to switch gears, there was an interesting YouTube clip out there this week.
Let me remind everybody just real quick, Joe, I'm sorry.
Sure,
We're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. We're way into the breach. We got a lot of chatter going on in the chat room right now. So if you're out there, we started out the show with about 100 people watching. It steadily climbed throughout the show. So right now, we're at about 320, 330. God bless you all for tuning in. If you like this video, of course, please share it with your friends, all right? So just wanted to let you know that. So very important. States' rights, let's start asserting them. Go ahead, Joe.
There was an interesting YouTube clip that was circulating around regarding Africa and abortion. It's obviously focused on the Mexico City policy, and basically the Africans in it, it's made by Africans. It's basically them pleading with Joe Biden to stop paying their countries to kill children. Now, President Joe Biden likes to present himself as an advocate for racial justice and a man of the people, especially those whose voices are often underrepresented. Yet his actions routinely contradict his lofty rhetoric. A recent example is how he has ignored the African people's plea not to fund abortion on their continent. One of more than 24 executive orders President Biden signed recently revokes the Mexico City policy. For those who don't know what that is, the policy was first implemented by President Ronald Reagan in 1984, and it requires any federal grant recipients to agree to either perform nor actively promote abortion as a method of family planning to receive U.S. aid. President Biden fulfilled his campaign promises by signing the executive order to reverse the policy on January 28th. Now, the important part.
He did that one in a New York minute.
Once again, permitting money drawn from American taxpayers to fund overseas abortion. And also, which I think, and this is what I alluded to in the first part, which I read to you guys, is this. We give aid around the world, particularly in Africa. It will be contingent upon the aid to have, am I correct on that?
Yep.
Abortion being promoted in that country. Isn't that extortion?
Well, the thing is, there's two sides. This Mexico City policy says that you can't use that foreign aid to promote abortion or perform abortions. Okay. That's one side of it. The other side of it, which Hillary Clinton proposed back in 2015, 2016, she wanted to make foreign aid itself contingent on you actually promoting an abortion. So there's two sides of it. But Mexico City basically says that the money won't go to you if you promote abortions. If you promote abortion,
it comes
or you perform abortions, you will get no money. That's what Mexico City says. That's the Mexico City.
Well, he reversed it.
Right. Clinton, Reagan
put it down.
Put it. You'll put it into law. Clinton reversed it. Bush reversed it back. Obama reversed it back. Trump reversed it back, and now Biden reversed it back. So that one's going to go back and forth. Mexico City's going to go back and forth. But here's my problem. More than anything else. And I agree. You knew he was going to do this. I said a New York minute. It was a New York minute because Joe Biden is in the pocket of big abortion. We all know that. That's plain as a nose on your face. Okay. Why does he want to kill black babies so much? That's my question. That's what they're asking in this. That's what the Africans are saying. Why do you want to kill our babies?
And it's the Africans saying it.
Right, it's not us, not a couple of what they love to call white guys. Even though we all make sure they're not going to steal my identity, and they're not going to steal Joe's identity. We are Roman Catholic American men of Italian descent. That's our identity. Okay, I don't know what a white guy is. That's a leftist. White guy is a leftist construct. But here's my problem: it's the left that's pushing this on Africa. And why is the left supporting the white guy in the Oval Office that it wants nothing more than to just kill black babies in Africa?
And where,
I don't get it.
And where are the race baiters on this?
Right.
Where is MSNBC?
Crickets.
Again, these are Africans saying we don't want this in our country. And you, being the rich white nation, forcing it upon us.
What did Cardinal Mueller say? It's the new colonialism. It's the new colonialism. Isn't that what it is?
Basically.
They rail against colonialism, okay, when it was Europe bringing the Catholic faith to all these different places throughout the world, okay? They rail against colonialism. They rail against British colonialism in India, all right, even though there's a good argument to be made that the British presence in India had a real civilizing effect on the Indians. And I could give you one example of that. The practice of wives throwing themselves on the funeral pyre with their dead husband, that was done away with by those bad British. But anyway, my point is this. It was bad when you were going in to civilize these nations. Now you have these white colonialists on the left. They want to go in and they want to kill the population. They don't just want to control the culture, Joe. They don't just want to control the population. They want to kill future generations of Africans from even coming into this world.
Because we know better than you. It comes down to that once again. We're helping you. You don't know better. Isn't that condescending?
Yep.
Isn't that racist? I think it is.
I think it is. Big abortion is racist. Everybody needs to start saying that as much as you can. Okay, big abortion. Even if you're talking to a pro-choice person, don't attack them. It's fine. Let it stew in their mind a little bit. But make sure you tell every pro-choice person out there, okay, big abortion, Planned Parenthood, NARAL, and the rest of them, okay, the UN, the EU, that all promote it, is in its heart and in its soul, its black and darkened soul, is racist. That's what it is. Their aim is to control populations, and mainly the populations in countries where the babies that are being born, if they're allowed to be born, are black and brown. It is inherently racist, and they need to be called out for the racist organizations that they are.
And also, this is also important to know. A recent poll shows that this decision is extremist and far from the unifying moderate that Biden, portrays himself to be, and portrayed himself to be on the campaign trail. Not that he cares, because he has a complicit media, and they'll never cover this. That's why we cover it. However, the poll finds that 77% of Americans, including many independent voters and some pro-choice Democrats, oppose U.S. funding to support abortion in other countries. Why should I have to pay for that?
By the way, that stat I think is mirrored also by the percentage of American people, regardless of their position on abortion, about having taxpayer funding in general for abortion, even in America. Like giving that $500 million a year to Planned Parenthood, like it's over 70% of the people, many of whom call themselves pro-choice, say, well, I still don't want the government paying for it. You want to have an abortion? Go pay for it. Because I'm not paying for your abortion, just like I'm not paying for your contraception. You want to go kill your baby? Don't ask me for money to do it. I'm not giving you any. Too bad. Or as my mother would say with her Italian accent, still bad.
Once again, Western leftists insist on imposing their ideology, as Cardinal Mueller has said, on these communities, providing a solution to a problem that doesn't exist for them. They don't want your help. This is from the Africans. Look it up. It's out there right now. It's actually on my Facebook page, as well as the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Look it up on Facebook, because these communities basically are telling them, we know better than you. No, you don't.
And another thing, too, when you're talking about places like Kenya, when you talk about places like Nigeria, their concerns are not abortion, Mr. Biden, all right, and the rest of the horrid crew out there, as Milton would have called them, okay? They're not interested in abortion. You know what they're interested in? Because they're not killing their babies. So you can forget about that. What they're interested in is a good economy. How about we get our boot, America's boot, and the West's boot off their economic throats and let them start opening up markets in their respective countries? How about they get some rule of law, okay? And they start to grow their economies. Guess what? Those brown babies and those black babies, they'll get fed very well. Remember in America, when immigrants came here with nothing, Joe's grandmother had 17 kids. 17 kids. My grandmother, who my father's mother, who is here, had 8 kids. They came here with nothing. Don't tell us that babies are the problem. The problem is when you put your boot on somebody's neck economically and you don't give them the chance to thrive, then it's easy for you to convince them that they might as well go and kill their baby. So that's what's got to stop. We have to encourage Africa, all right, and encourage them economically. They already have the moral foundation, okay? Mike Jones was said it the other day on the show, okay? Convents, Catholic schools, Kenya, Nigeria, they're thriving. Okay,
the future of the Catholic Church is in Africa.
Is in Africa. He was describing the little kids, the little boys who are going to the Catholic school wearing their blue blazers, and they're just like when I went to Seton Hall Prep. You wear the blue blazer and the tie and everything else, and they're learning. They're getting a real education from the Catholic Church. Okay, what they need is an economy. Okay, how about you do that for them, Mr. Biden? How about you try to lift them out of their economic misery that the West imposes on them, by the way? They don't choose it. The West imposes on that on them because they don't want Africa getting too powerful. You know why? Because you're having a hard time controlling those Africans because they don't want to kill their babies and they don't think the two men should be allowed to marry each other. And that's why you want them to kill their future generations because you can't control those people.
Since we're talking about Joe Biden, I came across.
Do we have to talk about
him? Sadly, but I came across this week, and I wanted to point it out because I don't know if people know actually how many executive orders he has actually put forth. As of February 4th, Joe Biden has signed 52 executive orders. That is the most in the history of the United States of America. I want to just name 5 of them, just so you know what's going on.
But real quick, first of all, we're at the front line with Joe and Joe, Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. We have the audience has grown throughout the show, so we're up near 400 now. We're at about 380 right now, watching across a bunch of different platforms. Please, after we're done, or even if you can while you're watching, share it with your friends or share it in groups. That would really help us. If you're following us on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're seeing us, please like, subscribe, or share, or support us in any of those ways. If you like what we're saying. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, absolutely.
And by the way, I did have another point. Okay, so I said on our radio show on the Crusade channel. Okay, I said that I'm basically going to be Vegas. Okay, I'm setting myself up as Vegas, and I'm giving you the opening line on the over/under. Okay, on Joe Biden. Okay. So before this story came out, I set the over-under at August, okay? And I wasn't taking a position either way. I was saying, okay, whichever way you want to bet, if you think he's going to last further than August and go over August or go under August, and I'll take all the action, okay? I'm thinking about moving the line's moving a little bit because Joe's about to tell you that this guy signed 52 executive orders. It seems to me they're trying to get him to ram through this stuff real quick because I think he's going to be out a lot sooner than that. I really, really do. I don't think Joe Biden now, I'm moving the line. The line is now June. Go ahead.
Let me just read to you a few. I want to just read 5 of the 52 executive orders as of February 4th. 52, the most in the history of the United States of America. They called Trump a tyrant. I think you're the tyrant, Joe. That's more executive orders ever, any president, including Mr. Barack Obama. Let's just go.
He crushes Barack Obama. I think he makes Obama look like a piker in the executive order department, or at least the rapid pace with which they've been coming out.
Let's just go through a couple of them, and I want to focus on this one. He basically, including illegal aliens in the census. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? You're basically affecting the political outcome in certain states because the more people that are registered, the more congressmen you get. Am I correct?
Right. Yep.
And in doing that in certain states, Texas being one of them, he's affecting future generations. So he's manipulating the election system by that executive order. I just wanted to highlight that because that is exactly why you're doing it.
Well, going back to the 80s, I mean, this goes back to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan trusted them. In other words, when he gave the illegals amnesty back then, okay, they promised they would do something about the border. And like with the left, when they said, well, give us what we want, and then we promise we'll get back to that. Well, Reagan found out the hard way when they screwed him on immigration, okay? So they screwed Reagan on immigration. They never did anything about it. And in Southern California, primarily, they got about 3 million people got amnesty. Why do you think California, one of the reasons, other than the fact that California is completely rigged, but one of the reasons is that all those people that were given amnesty, well, their kids grew up, okay? And then they became voters, and the Democrat Party took credit for them becoming citizens. And a lot of those people, mainly Latinos in Southern California, vote for the Democrat. That's the way it is. So we found out the hard way. Reagan found out the hard way. You cannot trust the left, okay? But this is exactly why they do this with immigrants. There's a number of reasons, but the primary thing for the left is votes. They want people to come here illegally. It doesn't matter. Get on the public dole so that any politician, and give them the right to vote. And any politician who says, well, we're going to make you actually, we're not going to give you health benefits because you're not a citizen and all those sorts of things, or we're not going to let you vote because you're illegal, they'll never vote Republican. Basically, they'll just keep voting Democrat. That's what the Democrats are banking on. That and their oligarch friends wanting as many people to come across the border so they could drive down workers' wages in this country. And that's no conspiracy. That's a fact. These left-wing oligarchs love nothing. They talk about the working man, but they love to drive down our wages through illegal immigration.
Revoking the Keystone Pipeline. We're going to talk about this tomorrow on our Crusade show.
What a disgrace.
14 attorney generals have spoken out about it. It's affected 14 states dramatically, all union jobs. It's also affected, just the word of it has affected the price in gas in New Jersey, where I get gas. It's since November up 40 cents a gallon. That's just by me. That's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. By the way, that's a regressive tax, whether you realize it or not, and that affects the working man and the poor.
Bro,
more than anyone.
I have an Altima. Okay, I don't drive an SUV. I have an Altima. Okay, it cost me $43 to fill up the tank the other day. Thanks, Mr. Biden. Thanks, all you environmentalists. Don't talk to us that you're going to hit the rich. You're coming after us, and we know it.
He imposed the transgender agenda on women's sports, and he's revoking transgenderism in the transgender military ban. There have been military studies that have said, studies within the military, that this is not good for the military. It makes no sense. Coupled with the fact people can go into the military and you pay for it if they want to have such an altering operation.
Leaving that aside for a second, I'm not paying for somebody's cosmetic surgery. And yes, there's these surgeries that these people go through. It's cosmetic surgery. It's no different than a nose job. It's much worse than a nose job because it's out and out mutilation. I'm not paying for it. Taxpayers, again, just like we shouldn't have to pay for abortion, I'm not paying for you to mutilate your body. Number one. Number two, when you ask a military whose job it is to go out there, fight our enemy and dodge bullets and risk their lives, okay, you know what? You know, it's not a place for social engineering. No way. You know, you see how the left wants to put its filthy claws into everything? The military fights wars, okay? You don't do anything to the military that's going to cause a problem or cause dissension. When you have a man who believes he's a woman staying in a barracks in the military, again, I don't even know which barracks they would stay in, okay? This causes problems.
How about you're in a foxhole and you're like, this is somebody, like, I'll be honest with you. If you ask me, this is someone that has a disorder. By the way, Johns Hopkins has weighed in on it and has agreed with what I just said. I'm actually, no, let me rephrase that. I'm agreeing what they just said. Johns Hopkins, the best medical school in the world, one of the best, if not the best in the United States, said if you basically change your sex, it is a disorder.
Right.
We've covered this on the show time and time again. You're going to go into a foxhole with such a person. I got news for you, and I'll say it publicly. I don't even think women should be in combat. No place for it. Very sorry. Call me a chauvinist. Call me Archie Bunker. Call me anything you want. I have a daughter. I don't want her going to war. Right. I have 3 sons. I don't want them going to war. But before she goes to war, they're going to war. I don't want my daughter going to fight in a battle. There's no place for it. Never mind the transgender person who, if you ask me, needs help. They need help.
I would tell American feminists who have championed this idea of women in the military, well, when another country attacks us or we have a cause to go to war against another country and they're not feminists, there's all men in their armies, okay, pointing their guns at our military. Well, all you feminists, you go and fight. You go, and all the men will stay home. You see how long the United States lasts. Joe's right. It's not a matter of being a chauvinist. It's a matter of recognizing the natural roles of men and women. Men fight. Men protect. Men go out and fight the wars, okay, to protect you women. Doesn't matter how great a shape you're in. You're probably in very good shape. A lot of these women that better shape than the men are. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how good you could shoot a rifle. What matters is you're a woman and you shouldn't be in combat. You could be in the military, but you shouldn't be in frontline combat. You should not be. It is not the natural place for you. Men go out and fight the wars, and we don't care what you think about that. That is not an arcane or antiquated way of thinking. That's a correct way of thinking. Men protect. And the main thing to do is to protect women and children and weaker men, because some men can't fight, okay? They protect weaker men. That's what men are supposed to be doing.
And lastly, restoring U.S. funding to overseas groups for fighting abortion, which we just talked about. That's just 5 of the 52 executive orders as of February 4th that Joe Biden has signed, the most in U.S. history for any president. Who is the tyrant? Who is the dictator, Mr. Biden? Ask yourself that.
And who's the unifier?
And by the way, no one is covering this story. When have you heard, even, I don't even know if Fox has covered it, but because I don't watch Fox
maybe Sean Hannity has.
But in terms of like, when is CBS, ABC,
when is
MSNBC,
when is Brian Stelter going to
talked
cover
about this?
Right.
52 executive orders in 3 weeks.
But John McCain, God rest his soul, but I'm going to beat him up a little bit. But John McCain sat in Trump's first State of the Union address, and somebody heard him mumbling the names of tyrants, Mussolini and Hitler and Franco and all these people. It's like, well, Senator McCain, if he was still alive, I would say, who's the tyrant? Donald Trump, who tried to decentralize power, okay, in America, tried at least to give more power back to the states. Joe Biden, who's unified, he's centralizing power in the federal government. He's consolidating power in the executive branch. 54 executive orders. Prove that.
52.
52,
But
excuse
still,
me.
it's probably 54 now because that was as
of the other day.
It's probably more.
So who's the tyrant here? That's the thing I don't get about these people. Trump was a fascist. He was a tyrant. He needs to be removed because he's destroying democracy. I didn't see the Congress voting on any of these.
No, why they say
these proposals?
They write it off as he's righting the wrongs of Donald Trump. He's just making things right. He had to do this. rationalize, and rationalize.
Because that's not our system of
Correct.
government. That's
and
not the way
misuse
it works.
Of the executive order. And this is more than any president ever.
He's crushing Obama in the executive order department.
Crushing any Republican.
I think Obama had like, at this point in his presidency, I think he had like 5.
Yeah,
he had like 5
that.
executive orders. This guy's got 10 more than that. 10 times more than that.
It's 52.
So who's the tyrant? Nuts. The tyrant is, and you know what? Joe Biden's so deficient. You can't even call him a tyrant. Tyrants know what they're doing. Joe Biden doesn't know.
And they wrote all these before he was even there.
They wrote. I mean,
this is like they're probably just like we had him ready. Just sign him.
They went like this. They took his hand. They said, "Joe, hey," and they slapped him. And they went, "Here, Joe. Here's the pen. Here's the pen. Just sign." And he stood there like this. He's got his mask on, and he looks up at the camera. And then he looks down and he signs. And then he looks like Don Cheech when De Niro handed him the canister of olive oil. He looked like Don Cheech. He went like this. He went, and that's it. And he puts the executive order on the side and he does it again. This guy's going to be gone. I moved my line. My line originally was August. I moved my line to June. You all heard it. Okay. Here at the front line with Joe and Joe, this guy's going to be gone because the tyrants are the ones that are behind him. And I don't mean Kamala Harris. Okay, if you ask me, this is Barack Obama's 3rd term, but it's going to be worse because Barack Obama was actually in office, whereas now Obama could wield some real power because guess what? If they criticize the administration, they won't be criticizing Obama. They'll be criticizing Biden, and in a few months, they'll be criticizing Kamala, but they won't be criticizing him. But he's the guy that's behind them, him and all his buddies, telling them what to do. And it's amazing to me. And Donald Trump was the fascist totalitarian. Are you kidding me? Is that a joke? Trump at least tried to give us some more power back. Biden took away. He dropped the hammer on 100,000 jobs in the first 3 days in office.
See, I have a problem with the press holding them accountable on that. You see, this is the danger with Joe Biden in office. They give him a pass. We don't have a critical press with this guy. This guy could do a lot of things, and he's going to do a lot of things, and they're not going to question it. Just like what we just said, 52? What are you, crazy guy? Oh, we're just righting all the wrongs from Trump. Really? Trump was that bad that you have to basically use your power that doesn't represent the people's voice, where as in it's a law that goes through the House and the Senate and then comes to you. You're just going to usurp all that and sign 52 pieces of legislation basically into law. I mean, it's temporary, but at this particular time, it has to be, followed because he signed it because it's an executive order from the president of the United States. I mean, this is disgraceful.
Right.
It's disgraceful and no one cares. No one holds him accountable. No one even says it. This is the danger of what's going on. One of the many things that are dangerous.
We have a monolithic media.
It's scary. It really is.
By the way, Hammett 175 is in the chat room. I got to say, he says, listen, I'm listening to you guys, but I'm tired of being yelled at. Hammett, I'm angry. No, stick with us, brother. We're not yelling at you. Okay, we're yelling at the crazies out there in just a little bit more of an animated way. So don't get bent out of shape. We don't mean to offend. But we are. Colin took our back in the chat room and he said, that's that Jersey style these guys have. So really, not for nothing. I mean, nobody, I'm not attacking you, Hammett, but nobody says anything. Mark Levin starts yelling off the top of his head. Every time you listen to him, he says, it's all Barack Obama's fault. All right, I'm an American citizen and Barack Obama's trying to take away my rights. So I'm not trying to be like Mark Levin, but there is something to be said about a little righteous anger, Hammett. Okay, and that's really what I'm trying to say is we're mad and we get angry sometimes. Joe's a good counterbalance to me because he doesn't get as angry as I do. All right, but these things are angering. No, especially when you look at, let's say, like Joe just said, a monolithic media that continues to lie, and we have to listen to them, and they insult us by telling us that they're the smartest people in the room. Brian Stelter is the smartest guy in the room, and Jake Tapper, he's smart too, and all the rest of them. Okay, we're tired of them. So the voices get raised a little bit, Hammett. Stick with us. We love you. We hope you love us. You're listening to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rissanello way into the breach. We got a great crowd tonight. This audience just kept going up and up the whole time. We're at about 400 right now. We're across too many different platforms to even mention. Follow us, please, on YouTube and Facebook. That's primarily for now where you'll find the front line with Joe and Joe. We are going to create other pages on other sites. So when the hammer gets dropped on us by big tech, we'll be able to smoothly transition, and we'll let you people, all you good people, know where to find us. So please, and share this video if you don't mind. If you like what we're saying, please share it with your friends. So we got a couple more stories. We're having a great conversation. So where are we headed next, Joe?
We're going to talk minimum wage, and we're going to continue to talk Biden. This was interesting. This was on MSNBC Live. The White House Council of Economic Advisors, the member's name is Jared Bernstein, reacted to a Congressional Budget Office study showing that the $15 minimum wage would cost over 1 million jobs. Let me just give you the back and forth on this, and then we'll talk about it. I think this is a very telling conversation. And then you think for yourself if this was good or not. Okay? I'm going to give you all the facts, and then you judge for yourself.
Now, okay, just along the same lines, okay? And I want anybody out there who hears this story, okay, and doesn't get a little bit angry. Go ahead, Joe.
This is the host. It's Chris Janising. He asked, the gentleman's name again is Jared Bernstein. He said, there's a fascinating study out there by the Congressional Budget Office that says it would actually cost 1.4 million jobs by 2025. This is if the minimum wage is raised to $15 an hour, but would reduce the number of Americans below the poverty line by 900,000. What's your analysis of that? Your reaction? Bernstein responds, I mean, with respect, the part you just read leaves out by far the most important number in the study, which is 27 million people get a wage increase from raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025. The other numbers that you mentioned, they do come out of the study. You're correct about that. But we have a tendency to focus on some of the big negatives, or in this case, the deficit impact. Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Bernstein. If you're one of the 1.4 million people that lose their jobs, many of which are probably minimum wage earners, is that just it's a big negative? You're being a downer. I think this is crazy. Red
Hat's in the chat room. He said $15 minimum wage will price out the lowest people with no skills. Absolutely right. Many of the people, again, Joe and I, our parents, we didn't grow up with anything. We grew up in Newark, New Jersey. Okay, our parents were working people. Okay, and many parents worked 2 jobs. Our grandparents definitely worked 2 jobs. Okay, a lot of these people that are making a lot of these 1.4 million people that Mr. Bernstein, is that his name?
Yeah.
Says, well, let's not focus on them. Let's talk about the 27 million people that are going to get a pay increase. No, I want to talk about the 1.4 million people, like Red Hat said, who are not going to be able to go out and find another job because you arbitrarily raise the price, raise the wages through government action, okay? And you just killed 1.4 million jobs. And many of those people that are working for $10 and $11 and $12 an hour are working 2 jobs, making $10, $11, and $12 an hour. You could potentially kill a person's whole livelihood. How many people work 40 hours a week making about $12 an hour? But then let's say on the weekend, a lot of immigrants do this. Our parents did this, okay? And our grandparents did this. So it's not unheard of. They work on the weekend another 8 hours, let's say. Or on a couple of the weeknights, they might have a side gig where they work an extra 4 hours. In other words, at night. So they're working about 60 hours a week. But what would you rather do, Mr. Bernstein? Have that person, okay, working 2 jobs, 60 hours a week, making $12 an hour. That's $720 a week. That's about $3 grand a month. It's a little less than $3 grand a month. Okay, you could get by on that. Joe and I were talking before the show. It's not all the money in the world, but you're not starving if you're making $3 grand a month. This stuff, this raising the minimum wage, could potentially take that person out of both jobs. And we'll take those 1.4 million people and take them right out of a job. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? They're low skilled, like Red Hat said in the chat room, okay? And you're taking away their job, and nobody else is going to hire them because the other job that they're going to go for, they just got done firing a bunch of people because they're not going to pay them $15 an hour. You have to understand basic economics, Mr. Bernstein. A couple of jamokes like us can educate you on that a little bit. You raise the minimum wage artificially, you cost people their jobs. It's that simple. And you know that. You just admitted that. And you think it's not a big deal. Well, let's not focus on the little negative. No, for that 1.4 million people, that's a big gaping negative. If I'm a guy making, let's say me and my wife, let's say I was making $12 an hour and my wife was going out and making $12 an hour. Okay. And we were both working 40 hours a week. Okay. That means we're making combined about $4,000 a month. We could get by on $4,000 a month. Now, would I like to make more money? Certainly. Okay. But if that's the case, and many people do it, we could get by on $4,000 a month. You can pay your rent. You could have a cell phone. You could have cable TV. You could have food in the fridge. Okay. You can even buy a pack of smokes if you're a smoker. You could buy a bottle of wine. Okay. You could do okay with $4,000 a month. Again, not all the money in the world. You do this, at least one of those people is losing their job. And that's not right. That's unjust. What you're trying to do is help people, but but obviously the data shows that you'll be hurting people.
And also what it's going to do is the people that are left behind are going to do your job and have to work harder. You see, companies always push the loss on people. This is something we're going to talk a little bit about taxes as the show moves forward. You see, the big guy never eats it. This is what the Democrats, they don't get, or they get it, but they don't communicate it. And sadly, the people, I don't understand if they're thinking, companies always push losses down on the consumer or the employee, i.e. they fire people. So we'll take McDonald's as a model. You have 6 cashiers making a minimum wage, and now it's mandatory that you have to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So what are they going to do? They're going to lay off 2 to 3 cashiers. So what does that do? It makes the 3 that are there work harder. It also makes the lines longer, because the CEO is not going to eat it, because, and this is a basic rule of economics, is this: in order to have wages raised, you have to have real growth. This is not real growth. The government is imposing a regulation on big business, who will then pass on that loss to their employees and the consumer.
Right.
And
so everybody suffers. So everybody suffers. Everybody suffers. The consumer suffers. Okay. The workers suffer. The ones who have their jobs. Okay. Because they're going to be working much harder.
And the price of the hamburger might even go up.
Price of your burger is going up. Price of your fries is going up. Okay. And because the CEO is still going to make money. Joe always said this. He's been saying this since we've been doing this show. His favorite phrase, or one of his favorite phrases: the man is always going to get paid. Let's remember that when they try to go after the rich, supposedly go after the rich, when they say that, what they're really saying is, we know they're going to get paid. We're coming after you. In this case, I think it's horrible. I think, again, it was Red Hat in the chat room who said, what about these teenagers? Every teenager, I went to work for Barney's Pizzeria in Newark, New Jersey. Loved Barney. I think he's still alive. I think he's 96 years old. Okay. It's my first job. Okay. And Barney paid me $2 an hour in 1980. I was 13 years old.
Make boxes?
No, I actually rolled out the pizza dough. I learned how to cook there. In other words, I learned that I'm a pretty good cook. A lot of what I learned was early on when I worked for Barney, and I made boxes too. But Barney paid me $2 an hour, and I worked Friday night because I was a busy pizza night, and I worked Saturday night, and those were the 2 nights I worked. It was a part-time job, and I made $16 a night. So Barney would pay me like $35 on a Saturday night, maybe throw me a couple extra bucks. I made $40 for working 2 days. It was all the money in the world. But one thing I learned at 13 years old, it was my money. I earned it. People are forgetting about that. Okay. I was 13. I didn't have any skills. I was in high school. Okay. And the thing is, but I earned that money. It showed me an appreciation for money. I got into the workforce. I met other people. Okay. People I still have relationships with to this day. Okay. My point is like, what happens if those kids that you want Barney, in this case, the owner of McDonald's, CEO of McDonald's, to pay him $15 an hour? Those kids, especially if you talk about, let's say, McDonald's in New York City, who do you think works at McDonald's in New York City? It's all Black and Hispanic kids from the outer boroughs, from Brooklyn, from Queens, okay, from the Bronx. They travel down, they get on the subway, they come down to Midtown to go and make that $12 an hour. I'm just using that number, okay? It's less than 15, but to make that $12 an hour, let's say, all right? And the thing is, you're taking them out of a job. Where are these kids going to go? They're getting into the workforce. They're learning how to work. They're learning a particular business. They can then take those skills to the next level and the next level and the next level. The problem is these people listen, if the minimum wage is so great, and I've never heard a leftist be able to answer this actually in any sort of truthful way. If the minimum wage is so great, and it doesn't hurt, and people don't get laid off, then why don't we raise it to $50 an hour? It's the same argument. If higher taxes are so great, then why don't we have a 100% tax rate? If taxes are so great, why don't we have a 100? It's the same thing. Stop. So you got to tell these people sometimes, Joe, stop. Okay, I want the person to make $15 an hour. I want them to make $50 an hour.
But again,
it doesn't work that way.
Again, you have to have real growth to have, because you have to remember, people who run these companies, they don't pay you because they like you, and nor do they want to share their profits. There's no union jobs in these low, basically paying positions. They're going to pay you the minimum. And if they have to pay you a little more, guess what? They're going to cut your hours, and they're going to make other people work harder. They're still going to get paid.
That's right.
You see, this is what the Democrats don't say, and this is what doesn't sink into people's heads. The company still gets paid. They just pass on the loss to you. That's the way it works. Sadly, that's the way it works.
Nobody's answering the question, Robbie. Robbie from Texas, who's also, I think you also listen to us on the Crusade channel. Robbie says UBI is on the way, Universal Basic Income. I believe that's one of the reasons why they're doing this.
That's a control mechanism.
Of course it is, because what they do is this. Let's say, for argument's sake, you're getting, Andrew Yang talked about $1,000 a month. We live in New Jersey. You know what you could do with $1,000 a month? Not much, okay? If anything. So the thing is, so they want to push people into, again, government dependency. Universal basic income would come down to being dependent on the government. I don't want to be dependent on the government. I want to go out and work, because work, number one, is blessed by God Almighty himself. God gives us work. He dignifies our work. He blesses our work. And it's the means by which I put money on the food on the table. I don't want your charity, Andrew Yang, and all those that are proposing universal basic income. But what are they doing? Again, Joe, they're selling you the utopia. If we give you a universal basic income and you won't own anything, somebody said that recently too, you won't own anything. You'll just rent. You just rent things. You don't actually buy anything, but you'll be much happier that way.
Says who?
So Jeff Bezos can make $13 billion in one day because of stock appreciation. And you're going to convince me that I'm supposed to be happy making $1,000 a month and not owning anything.
Because I know better than you.
Right? That's
and
exactly
I have to take care of you.
What Joe's saying, he's exactly right.
And that's exactly what Gerhard Mueller is saying. It becomes a totalitarian state.
Well, do you think you're going to have freedom of thought, action, and speech? If the government says to you, remember the social credit system that they have in China, which they're trying to impose here.
We're going to be talking about that on the Crusade channel tomorrow.
We'll be talking about that tomorrow. Okay, social credit system. Okay, you want that $1,000 a month universal basic income?
You want your kids to go to college?
You want the kids to go to school?
We'll pull the plug on it.
But don't we give you
$1,000 a month?
Your neighbor called us up and said they saw you walking into a Catholic church. You can't go to a Catholic church. You can't go to any church. Okay, or else you're going to lose $200 of that $1,000 universal basic income. You actually went online to listen to the Frontline with Joe and Joe.
That's a slave.
You're losing $500 for that. Okay, so no. You don't have the right to free speech. You don't have the right to freely act the way you want. You don't have freedom of thought. You will listen to us. That's why they want and pushing, particularly the oligarchs on the left. That's why they're pushing universal basic income. They're pushing that because they want, as with welfare, they want to create a more dependent class so that class gives them more power. And then they're going to turn around and try to convince those same people that everything is going to be fine and your life's going to be great. You won't own anything, but you won't have to worry about anything. And you know what we'll give you? We'll give you all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll you want. Knock yourself out, drop dead. We don't care. Don't tell me that that's not their attitude.
Let's talk more money, dollars and cents. That's not coming into our pocket. It's what's costing the U.S. basically taxpayer. The National Guard presence at the Capitol currently is costing the U.S. taxpayer $483 million. That figure covers, by the way, the National Guard troops' presence from January 6, 2021, when federal authorities first requested them, through mid-March, when 5,000 National Guard members are slated to be in Washington, D.C. That is $500 million, my friends. on you. On you. Let me ask you this.
How do you like paying for that?
Please. Do you imagine if Donald Trump did that? Do you remember when they were threatening him when he was saying he was going to bring in the National Guard during the riots? And I'll tell you this, I was saying this to Joe before the show. I think that was one of his bigger mistakes. He should have brought in the National Guard. He should have told the governors of those states, tough. You don't get to burn down your cities because you hate me. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. It should never, ever, ever. 30 people died. You know, they talk about what happened on January 6th, and that was bad. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But 30 people died in the summer of 2021 because of these riots. It should never have happened, and the National Guard should have been brought in. If I was the president, it would have happened day one. I'm sorry. You could disagree. You could protest. But the minute you hurt people, I'm not permitting it.
That's right.
Tough, tough. And right now, because of the nonsense that goes on in our government, because our leaders don't represent the people, they actually have to protect them from us. And it's costing you $500 million. $500 million.
And speaking of the summertime, remember Jenny Durkan, mayor of Seattle, another sharp knife in the draw, okay? Called it the summer of love.
Oh, yeah, that's a summer of love.
Summer
Tell
love,
that
right.
to Dorn.
Right.
David Dorn.
David Dorn, who was shot, and his assailant, the guy who shot him, did a little social media clip while the guy was laying on the ground dying.
How nice.
How nice. But nobody condemned that guy. Nobody condemned Antifa. Nobody condemned Black Lives Matter. But then a couple of weak, I'm going to call them weak, Trump supporters, along with some Antifa agitators, decide they're going to walk into the Capitol. The police were told to stand down because that's obvious from the videos. Those cops didn't do anything. In fact, they let them go in. They got another martyr. That woman got shot, so they got another martyr. All right, that makes them happy. And they were able to call all those people, few 100,000 people that were listening to Donald Trump's speech, a bunch of domestic terrorists. But the people who actually burned down cities, shot at cops, killed David Dorn, killed 30 other people, raped I don't know how many in that autonomous zone they had
in Seattle.
Okay, nobody wants to talk about it.
Two teenagers were killed in Seattle.
Right, two black teenagers were killed in Seattle, but nobody said anything about Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and they weren't domestic terrorists. But now, just get this, okay? Joe and I weren't there on January 6th, but because we talk the way we talk, we're domestic terrorists. According to their standard and their definition, we're domestic terrorists because, A, we voted for Donald Trump. So that means we enabled him, which means we need to be deprogrammed. Get that through your head,
It's
okay?
pretty scary.
But the thing is, we're domestic terrorists. So Antifa could burn down a building, okay? Nothing, okay? Joe and I do the front line with Joe and Joe. And if the government gets a hold of this, which eventually they'll come for us, okay, we're going to be declared domestic terrorists. You tell me that anybody tells me this is America, I'm going to tell you you're smoking crack because this ain't America.
Let's talk taxes.
And real quick, those troops need to go home. There is no threat on the Capitol. They're keeping them there for political theater. That's all they're doing. It's political theater. January 6th.
That's a good point.
Primarily, okay, January 6th was planned. They knew what they were doing. The left knew what they were doing. They knew they'd get some weak Trump supporters to go into the Capitol, okay? And yes, I'm not the first one to say it, but I'm going to repeat it, okay? This is their Reichstag fire, okay? The Nazis burned down the Reichstag so they could blame their enemies. And they said, look what the communists did, okay? No, it's the same thing. They staged this. They took advantage of a hot situation, okay? And now they're saying, look at all these so-called, anybody who calls himself a patriot. If you're a patriot, you're a Trump enabler. You're a white supremacist, white nationalist, racist. You need to get sent to the gulag. That's eventually what they're going to be saying. That's what they're saying now. These troops need to go home. The political theater is over. The impeachment's over. Trump is 0. Nancy Pelosi's 0-2. I saw a great meme, by the way. Did you see this? This was a great meme. So the meme was Donald Trump sitting there, and the caption says, Nancy Pelosi's 0-2. Okay, because obviously she tried to impeach him twice, and twice she lost. And then the next slide is you see Nancy Pelosi on the phone saying, "Who's Owen?" I'm sorry, I know it's corny, but I thought that was funny. So we got one more story. We're at the front line, right, Joe?
Yeah,
we're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, and Joe Resinello. Please follow us and share this video. Follow us wherever you see it. YouTube, Facebook. Somebody mentioned BitChute. I do believe our producer, Jonathan Ross, has us on BitChute. Please follow Holy Faith Media. Just whatever you can to support, especially if you like the conversation. And please, by all means, if you are feeling generous and you like what we're doing, we do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/The Frontline with Joe and Joe. You'll see our two ugly mugs there doing our videos, and there's levels where you could subscribe to us. That would be, of course, greatly appreciated. Most appreciated would be your prayers. Thank you again. Having said that, Joe, where are we going to end up tonight?
Let's talk taxes. Middle class. The middle class will end up paying for the left's war on the rich. Let me break this down for you. The war on the rich is escalating on both coasts primarily. While Democrats argue they're righteously demanding the wealthy pay their fair share, it's the middle class who will pay the biggest price, as always. The legislation labeled a wealth tax presents the wealthy. And this is particularly focused in Washington state. Billionaires would be hit with a 1% tax on intangible assets. New York's legislation includes tax hikes on income, capital gains, inheritance, and even stock trades. It's a noble attempt to sound like Democrats care about the little guy. It's also an argument easily rejected. The wealth tax doesn't lower sales or property taxes, with the estimated $2.5 billion of new dollars that are coming into state coffers as a result of these raised taxes. In fact, Democrats are currently trying to raise the gas tax to what would become the highest in the country. It would mean in Washington state particularly, the citizens would pay nearly $1 per gallon in gas tax, something that seems awfully regressive indeed. That affects the poor more than anyone else.
Can we give people a little history lesson?
Go for it.
Okay, we need to learn. This is why we need to know our history. I know many of all you good people out there do. And again, I'm not even talking about in-depth, like real, like roll your sleeves up history. Just look at a general history of the 20th century, okay, and learn from this. Whenever they tell you we're not coming after you, we're not taxing the middle class, we're not taxing the working class, we're only taxing the rich. Remember something, the original income tax in this country, which I don't know if Joe agrees with me on this, I don't know if you agree with me on this, I will say, and I've thought for a long time, the personal income tax needs to be declared unconstitutional and needs to be abolished. That's a conversation for another day. Having said that, it was sold at the time as a tax on the top 1% of income earners in America. By the time now that was like in the mid 19 teens, 1914, 1915, right around that area, 1913. Within 20 years, the income tax went all the way down to the working class. Everybody paid taxes. Okay, so when they tell you it's only going to be on the rich, that's a lie. Number two.
And the rich have the money, by the way.
Right, and the rich don't care.
Their lifestyle doesn't change one iota. Yours does.
Right, and the only reason that rich people left New York City recently, and it's true, they have, okay, because they could deal with the increase in taxes, okay, and most of the time they don't care. But what happened in New York City was they were out and out attacked, particularly by the mayor, who basically attacked them every chance he got because he's a communist. De Blasio, whose real name is, what was it? Wilhelm, something like that. He took the name of his Italian great-grandmother so he could sound more ethnic. Anyway, he attacked them every chance he got. So they basically said, you know what, we're leaving. But what we have here, the New York Stock Exchange may leave New York. Now, you ask yourself, okay?
You'll just further drive New York into the sewer.
If you don't have Wall Street, if you don't have...
It's a banking city.
I tell everybody my profession. I don't tell anybody where I work, okay? Because I'm not going to get doxxed, okay? I need my job, okay? I wait on a lot of people, okay? I'm a server, and I wait on a lot of people, and the people I wait on make some bucks, okay? Not all of them. Some people are working people like us. Some people make a lot more money, but if I don't have those people coming in, guess what? I don't make a living. I need those people on Wall Street. I need those stockbrokers. I need those traders, those fund managers. I need their lawyers to come into the restaurant, okay? I need them to come in. I need people to be working like I work, but only down on Wall Street. The guy who makes $30 an hour as a janitor because once a month he takes his wife out to my restaurant and comes to eat. I need everybody working. Now I'm just using this as an example. Okay, I'm in a service industry. Okay, you get rid of the New York Stock Exchange. You impose these taxes. Who on earth do you think you're affecting? Do you think you're affecting these people? You think New York Stock Exchange leaves? You think that they're not going to set up shop in a friendly state that's going to say, you know what, we'll give you a tax abatement for the next 50 years.
Please,
all right?
please come.
They'll generate so much money.
Go to Tennessee. They go to Nashville.
That's right. And these ideologues, all right, and that might be giving de Blasio too much credit, because you might have to have a brain to be an ideologue and have an original thought. But let's call him an ideologue. He thinks it's just A-OK to kick out all these people or impose these taxes on stock transfers and things like that. These guys, these brokers, traders, fund managers, guys on New York Stock Exchange, all of them, they're lawyers, okay? And all of them, they're landlords, okay? They're going to say, see ya, bye. Don't want to be here anymore.
See, rich people have choices. It's the middle class, and that's what we're going to talk about if we turn our gaze to New York City in this conversation, as Joe was just saying. I mean, we saw this summer the wealthiest people, because of COVID, they left. They left. Over 600,000 people left New York. Why? Because they're the most mobile people on the earth. That's what Cuomo said, and he's 100% correct. It devastated the city, crushing the housing market. And here's the deal. As the wealthy flee the oppression of taxes because they can, who gets left with the burden? Us, the middle class in the blue states. Socialist and leftist activists view everyone who basically makes six figures as wealthy. I got news for you. A family of four, if you're not making six figures in northern New Jersey, you're living in a very, very, very small place.
Well, you're living modestly, to say the least.
Well,
if you're making $100,000 a year,
with say you have 3 kids,
you're making $100,000 a year in northern New Jersey. Okay, with 3 kids, you're doing okay, but you're getting by. You're not doing any real saving. Okay?
Oh gosh, one thing puts you out. Your lawn.
And as soon as your 18-year-old says, "Daddy, I got a 1600 on my SAT and Harvard accepted me." But I didn't get financial aid. You know what you're going to say? Sorry, sweetie.
Well, how about this? How about your washing machine just broke? You're not paying for it. You're going to put that on credit, and you're going to pay 29% interest on it.
Right.
I'm just telling you. Listen, we're not rich, but at the same time, it's expensive. The average, what's it called? Property tax in New Jersey, it just came out. It's $9,000.
Dave the Hermit just said, by the way, he goes, what middle class? Exactly.
$9,000. And that's the average in New Jersey. It is very expensive to live here. People work very hard here. The middle class, my wife and I, we work very hard here. It's not easy.
Well, that's why blue collar and working people and middle class people, one of the things that we try to emphasize on the show, take the state of New Jersey. You have to get over your obsession with abortion. You have to get over your obsession with gay marriage and all that, because generally speaking, the politician who in this state that's going to come along and actually do something like reducing taxes and breaking the teachers' unions, which is another conversation, but the teachers' unions need to be broken. All public sector unions need to be abolished because it's an inherent conflict of interest, okay? But until the people, let's say in New Jersey, who are blue collar and working class people, okay, until they get over this whole idea that I'm not voting for the guy who's pro-life and I'm not voting for the guy who's against gay marriage. Well, if you keep voting for the Democrats who are champions abortion and champion gay marriage, you keep voting for them, well, then you're going to continue to get screwed. So if you smoke cigarettes in New Jersey, rather than pay $5 a pack like they do down in let's say Virginia, okay, you pay $10 a pack because the government calls it a sin tax. You know what? The rich don't care when they pay $10 a pack for cigarettes, but they hit you with a $5 tax. In New York City, you pay $15 a pack for a pack of smokes. How about the booze tax? Okay, where there's a special tax on booze. You think the rich pay that? I mean, they pay it, but do you think they care? But when you want to go buy a bottle of wine or you want to get a bottle of Johnny Walker Black, okay, because you want to watch a football game or you want to get a case of beer, you're paying a special tax on that. That hits you. The rich people don't care about that. You get hit with that. And also, and Joe, like Joe mentioned earlier about the gas tax, okay, I spent $43 last week to fill up my Altima, okay? It's a joke. Every time they go after, every time they say we're going after the rich, they're coming after you. And in this state, the reason why we let them is because the Democrat politicians convince us, don't vote for that guy because he's not going to let your daughter go and have an abortion. Or don't go for that guy because he won't let 2 men get married. In other words, these are the reasons why many people in this state will not vote for a conservative Republican who they know will do what's in their financial best interest, but because of the social issues, they won't vote for that person. And that's why this state is a basket case. That's why it is.
It's the truth.
Economic and otherwise. We are right there below New York in terms of the level of how bad a basket case we are, because everything New York does, they do here. So there's no, until this state gets revamped. You know what I said? Tell me what you think about this. If they were smart in New Jersey, if they really were not ideological, tried to expand the tax base, what they do is they get rid of all the public sector unions. They drop the state budget down to God knows how low. Okay. They either abolish or reduce property taxes to $1,000 or $2,000 a month, okay? And they reduce all the business taxes, and they tell the people in New York, listen, you're tired of what Cuomo and the rest of them are doing to you? Come to New Jersey. You'd have the fastest growing state in the union. But they won't do it.
Well, the pensions are, what's it called? You can't, the math doesn't work. The Jersey's problem is, listen, everyone deserves to have a pension. I wish I had a pension. I work in the private sector. I don't get jack. I get kicked in the ass when I get basically let go. But I'll tell you what, the pensions don't add up. They can't, the math doesn't work. That's why New Jersey is New Jersey. The pensions were negotiated before we were in economic crisis, and right now they don't know where to get more money from.
Right.
That's why they're grabbing money from the gas. They're going to tax you here. They're going to raise this. They're going to raise the toll. They're going to raise that.
And New York's even worse.
They don't know what to do because Democrats don't know how to run a budget. Why is it that all the blue states are in the red? Ask yourself that. Ask yourself why. Every single blue state is a basket case economically. They don't know how to run a budget. It's a fact. Don't listen to me. Look it up yourself. They're all a basket case.
That's true. Listen, even in liberal California, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but there's actually a movement to recall Newsom, okay? Because once in a while, people just get a little bit fed up. You know what? And it's about time. So people, listen, if this is what's got to happen, if a lot of people who are convinced that these liberal Democrats are doing the right thing, if they need to get crushed financially through taxation to wake up, to really wake up, then that's what's got to happen. And until you wake up, they're going to continue to get away with this. If the New York Stock Exchange leaves New York, if they impose these taxes, New York is going to be a ghost town. It is never going to come back. It already is, and I'm there, you know, all the time. Okay. And there's nobody in the buildings. Commercial real estate has gotten destroyed. That's because of the COVID lockdowns. Okay. But now you got about 700,000 or 800,000 wealthy New Yorkers who have left. So what do you think they're going to do for money? They're going to go anywhere they can. And when the New York Stock Exchange leaves, and let's say some of these others and law firms and other businesses, when they leave, they're going to go after the middle class, and the middle class is going to have a choice. You're going to either elect somebody who's not like Mayor de Blasio and not like Governor Disgraziato Cuomo, okay? Or you, working class people in New York, you're going to be the ones to suffer.
They're never, these states, they'll never get it through their head till they go bankrupt. It's sad. I don't even talk New Jersey politics because, to be honest with you, New Jersey, it's like talking to the wall.
Yeah.
It's actually pathetic. Jersey, you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. This state will go bankrupt, and then everyone will flee, and then they'll renegotiate the pensions, and they'll start from ground zero.
And then they'll ruin it in 30, 40 years again.
Of course they will, because man without God is a mess.
You said a naughty word. You said God.
And they sure as heck don't want God.
No.
And that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
That's right. And that's right. A lack of belief in God. Objective belief in God, not believing like some new age guru type God. Lack of a belief in the real God, all right, leads to more problems than just, you know, let's say problems with sin. Okay, problems when you lack a belief in God and you lack virtue. All right, because this society, let's face it, I'm not the first one who says it. All right, lacks virtue. We kill our babies. We've killed 60 million babies since 1973. Or we've allowed it to happen. How we allow baby murder in this country on that scale is beyond me. It's because we don't listen to God or we reject God. But that also permeates all levels of society. Economics is not immune from that. In other words, economics is not something that is separated from the moral law. You can't do that, all right? And that comes, when I say economics, I mean also when it comes to the government and how they affect our economy through excessive taxation, okay? These people think the state's a savior for everything. God forbid they were to actually do something less than what they do. Oh, they have you all convinced that if they don't take in as much taxes as they do, the nation's going to fall apart. Well, look at New York City. The place is a ghost town. It's a mess. Their budget's a mess. Why? No, I thought being able to tax people up to you know what's supposed to be a good thing, but the place is a disaster. This is what we need to get through our head, and we could go on for an hour, but we're not going to, because we're at about an hour and a half. And we love you, and we want you to get on with your Sunday night. But we're certainly happy that you joined us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, any final thoughts tonight?
No, I think we covered a lot of different things. You know, you could check us on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. It's a subscriber-based channel. I think they have a lot of really good content. We're on every Monday. We have a lot of good interviews. Check our YouTube page. We have Mike Aquilina. It's Lent. Lent starts on Wednesday. We got Mike. We're interviewing him. We'll be doing a live stream of that interview on Saturday at 9 o'clock. You should check that out. It'll be a great conversation. We got a lot of things going on. We're growing. You know, basically, we're on a bunch of different platforms. We're on podcasts. You know, we want to thank you for your support, and we'll just keep it moving.
Absolutely. So follow us, please, on YouTube and Facebook primarily, but wherever you're watching the Frontline with Joe and Joe, support and like and share whatever options are available to you on those platforms, okay? We do have our Patreon account, so if you want to support us financially, could be as low as $5, could be as high as $99 a month. Whatever you want to do, patreon.com/the Frontline with Joe and Joe. It's all appreciated, of course. Your prayers are even more appreciated, because ultimately we will succeed or fail depending on how close we stay to God. And Joe and I stay close to God, and we ask him for guidance all the time. So we want to thank you for that. And make sure you please follow Holy Faith Media. Jonathan Ross does a phenomenal job of getting our message out to a much, much wider audience. So Holy Faith Media, and he has a great lineup of people on his channel. And finally, don't forget, if you get a chance either on YouTube or Facebook, to watch our interview with Dr. E. Michael Jones and Dr. Mara Kodekjevic from the other day. We talk about real deal resistance to the oligarchs. It's a great conversation, and we think you'll love it. You'll find it on our Facebook and YouTube page. And remember, until next week, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation that's going on everywhere. Talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening.